Welcome to DLA Dialogues, Factory to Foxhole, the podcast where we dive into the heart of DLA's mission and mindset. I'm your host, Jake Boyer. Today we're exploring a critical component of DLA's strategic framework, our support to the future of nuclear and space warfare, and why we have an office dedicated to it. Joining us is Colonel Matt York, Executive Director of the Nuclear and Space Enterprise Support Office. Matt also played an important role in establishing the Campaign of Learning. Colonel York, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Jake. It's good to be here. It's been fun to watch you guys build this podcast, so thanks for having me on today.
Well, I'm really glad you're here. Let's just kick things off. Can you give us a little introduction, who you are, what's your background, and what led you to NISO?
Yeah, so I am a aircraft maintenance officer by trade in the Air Force, so spent all of my career up to this point in some form or fashion helping airmen fix airplanes and generate air power. I'm at DLA because coming out of school at Fort McNair a couple years ago, I was waiting for my next assignment, and I was just fortunate enough to get assigned to DLA, and then get assigned to the NISO office. So it more led me here as a chance for me to get some experience learning the kind of bigger business side of sustainment and defense logistics.
Okay. For anyone who's not familiar with NISO, what is the Nuclear and Space Enterprise Support Office? What are you and your team doing?
Yeah, we're a little bit of a unique office at DLA, and I would clarify and just say, the NISO office at headquarters is not the only NISO office at DLA. We're just part of a network of teams, of NISO teams that exist at DLA's headquarters and at each of the MSCs. And essentially what we do is we exist to ensure that in the two no-fail missions that the Department of War has, that DLA doesn't miss a step, that we get it right every time because we can't afford not to get it right. So we handle everything from communicating with services and with the department to advising DLA leadership on how are we doing, to helping address issues, to helping advocate on the behalf of DLA's major subordinate commands to make sure that their story is being told and that they are getting all the resources that they need to go out and take the actions that need to be taken to support their portions of the nuclear enterprise.
So we hear the words strategic deterrence a lot, specifically in regard to these two domains. Mm-hmm. But for NISO and for DLA, what does strategic deterrence really mean, and what are we doing to support that?
It's a good question. It does get thrown around a lot. Fundamentally, deterrence is just about dissuading an adversary from taking a particular action because they believe that they will lose or that the costs involved in taking that action will be not worth it, right? And so strategic deterrence is just at that national level. Are we deterring adversaries or potential adversaries from taking actions or doing things that are counter to our strategic aims? The nuclear portion of that is, if you think about it from a pyramid almost, nuclear deterrence is almost the base of that pyramid, where if you maintain a very strong, visible, reliable nuclear capability, then it forms essentially the foundation for that deterrence posture, and it also forms the foundation of that calculation that our adversaries have to make, that they will, one, not escalate to the use of nuclear weapons or not take certain actions against us because they know that we have the capability to make that cost prohibitively high to them should they do that. So you can almost think of it as an insurance policy in some form or fashion. But it's a really interesting topic. There's a lot that goes into it. But fundamentally, DLA's part of that is if you were to reframe it from a pyramid to an iceberg, right? You see the nuclear portion of deterrence, and you see the conventional part, and then you see cyber and space and all of that. But that's just above the water. What you see below is the majority of the work going in to ensure what you see is ready to go. And that's where DLA exists, is making sure that all of the behind-the-scenes acquisitions, sustainment, storage of parts, distribution of fuel, all of that stuff is happening the right place, right time, right pace to ensure that the nuclear and space enterprise are always maintaining that right level of credible deterrence and threat to our adversaries.
Well, that's interesting, the iceberg concept. So speaking to that iceberg, I want to talk a little bit about what's happening today. What are some of the bigger challenges that DLA and NESO are helping the Department of War manage right now? The things that you can talk about, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that you can just read on the news right now, and over the past few years. If you look at who our adversaries are, our potential adversaries, you'll see that a lot has changed in the past 50 to 75 years since this idea of nuclear deterrence really took hold. We're not dealing with one nuclear-armed adversary. We're dealing with potentially multiple, and two in particular, right? In terms of Russia and the People's Republic of China that are near-peer adversaries in their nuclear capabilities, and they are continuing to advance their nuclear posture and development. And so if you go back to that concept of deterrence, this is fundamentally about that mental calculus in our adversary. And so if they're trying to tip that calculation back in their favor, then DLA's job is to help support the service and department's needs to keep our nuclear deterrence moving at the right rate and modernizing to ensure that deterrence calculation is always in our favor.
So you talked about just the evolution of things. And one thing that's evolved from when we were young people was once upon a time we talked about the nuclear triad, and now we talk about the nuclear enterprise. Can you kind of explain the ins and outs of that?
I won't say that it's same thing. The enterprise just is kind of that doctrinal term for the entire umbrella of things that go into supporting the mission. The triad really refers to the three types of capabilities that make up a credible nuclear deterrent, right? So you have one leg, which is the sea-based leg, which is our missile submarines that are the most survivable, hardest to get to, right? You have the air leg of the triad, which is our bombers, which are the most flexible, both in being able to move them around and also change what they're carrying, right, to disrupt what the enemy's calculus is. And then you got the most responsive, which is the land-based triad, a portion of the triad, which is our intercontinental ballistic missiles in the silos that you hear about and see in the ground. And then you have what is commonly referred to unofficially as the fourth leg of the triad, which is the NC3, or nuclear command, control, and communications. And so those that network of comms, which heavily includes space capabilities, is what ties all of that together into the triad, right? And then the triad, coupled with all of the rest of the supporting weapon systems and supporting operations, including DLA's portion, that's when you get into the enterprise as a whole.
Okay. What do you and your team do to balance the need to maintain and help the services maintain their nuclear and space capabilities while also being tied into what they're doing to modernize their capabilities and build new capability?
You are absolutely right. It's not just for DLA. It's for all the services in the department. It's a balancing act between modernization of legacy weapon systems like Ohio class, which is our current ballistic missile submarine, the B-52, the B-2, and the Minuteman III, along with all of the NC-3 systems. And so those have to remain viable up until the point that new systems come online. We could talk about that here in a second. But our office and then the MSC's offices have teams assigned to those weapon systems, and they spend a great deal of time at their end working with the services on demand forecasting, demand planning, and working to ensure that stock levels, procurements, all of those things are happening at the right place. From the headquarters level, a lot of times what we end up doing is helping advocate and educate with the services on the need to ensure that hey, as you're focusing your efforts on upgrading the B-52 to the B-52J, that is an important thing. But make sure that we are paying attention to all of those legacy parts that will end up being 100 years old almost by the time that fleet retires, which is just pretty incredible to think about. We advocate and educate to make sure that the services, the warfighters understand that we will always be there to support, but we will have to get more and more proactive in getting those demands and that data from the services so that we are able to go out and work with industry proactively and find somebody to make those parts because they may not have been made in decades by the time the services need them again. So we do a lot of that. The new systems coming online to recapitalize. So you've got Columbia that's going to replace the Ohio class. You've got the B-21 and then the B-52J, which is going to be the upgraded B-52. And then Sentinel eventually will replace Minuteman III. The MSC teams are doing just incredible work to do very similar things in terms of getting ahead now of what we need to work with industry to provision, to catalog parts, to be prepared to support those systems as they come online. And then in a similar fashion as we do for the legacy systems, the headquarters does a lot of education, a lot of advocacy, a lot of where we can, we try and go get resources to ensure that, as everyone strives to bring those new systems online as quickly as possible, as economically as possible, as efficiently as possible, that no one lets that sustainment posturing, fall to the wayside, which is a danger, right? To think, well, we can figure that stuff out later. And our job is to help make sure that our partners, our warfighter partners, understand that, no, we got to be doing that now to talk about the parts that you need 5 to 10 years from now, so that we can give industry that stable demand signal and then build the ecosystem correctly, which will ultimately also be the most economical to ensure the readiness of those new systems.
So before we bring it home, is there anything else you'd like to share with our viewers?
I would just say that sometimes the idea of nuclear deterrence and the nuclear enterprise, it almost gets pigeonholed into this like doomsday scenario only type thing, and it almost becomes this other thing that I think a lot of people at DLA don't necessarily understand how big a role they play in. And so what I would say to our viewers inside DLA is, you may not know it, but every MSC plays a really vital role and has big equity in supporting the nuclear enterprise, and every portion of DLA's headquarters does as well. And so we all play a role. And then I would say for all our viewers, that deterrence really is about dissuading and avoiding a conflict. And it is a really interesting psychological event, or kind of a calculation, a chess game, if you will, that's going on between us and our adversaries. And it will always be like that. But that can't work unless we're all doing our job to make sure that the systems themselves are always viable in the eyes of our adversaries. And so I would just thank everybody out there, but also just say, hey, just know that you are part of this. You may not know it, but we all contributed to it. And it is a really important mission because it does form the basis of that pyramid that we talked about. Our whole national deterrence policy rests on top of nuclear and space deterrence.
All right. Before we wrap up, it's time for the lightning round. I've got a couple rapid fire questions we always like to ask our guests.
Do I have books that cover? I don't know what.
Well, first question: what are some good books you've read lately?
Good books that I've read lately. One of my favorites, probably from the last couple of years, is still 10 Maps That Explain Everything About the World. Great read. That just kind of divides the geography across the continents and explains a lot about why a lot of our current political and socioeconomic conditions exist. So fantastic read there. Let me see. There is another book, but I'm getting the title wrong. I want to say Country of Many Nations, America, Country. I'm gonna have to get back to you on that other one. I would say go with 10 maps that explain everything about the world. That's a good read, worth everybody's time.
All right. Next question. What is your superpower?
On the personal level or professional level?
Let's go professional.
Ooh, professional. Okay. So I would say this is not something I inherently had. I believe that I've been fortunate to have been taught this by many a good mentor over my career. But I think it's kind of the systems thinking, being able to, yes, you're dealing with a problem. Maybe it's a part, but let's look at the broader context and see how much that matters as this one cog in this larger machine. And that skill will always be something I'm incredibly grateful to have been taught, because it allows you to, as we heard about in a recent warfighter talk, keep the main thing the main thing. It helps me stay focused on the overall right goals.
So on the other side of that, if we're going to learn, we have to know what our weaknesses are. So what's your kryptonite?
The list is endless. Spiders, scary movies, caffeine-free products. I don't know. You could go on and on.
Caffeine-free products is the kryptonite of every uniformed person.
That's right.
Well, Colonel York, I want to thank you so much for giving us some of your time today. I've learned a lot, and I hope our viewers in the DLA Enterprise have as well.
Thanks, Jake. It was really great to be here, and great to see this program taking off like it is.
For DLA Dialogues, I'm Jake Boyer. Until next time, remember, learning is a superpower. Use it wisely.